Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on the channel. Welcome back. If you do enjoy, of course, please be sure to like and subscribe. Today we're going to be discussing the changes in the director's vision for Arsenal Football Club, more so that Andrea Berta has seen, because I believe there is a change in direction of how the club operates, and the reason for that is the recent links to Hincapie. Now, I want to discuss this because you guys will be Arsenal fans just like me, and this is just a feeling, but do you feel like the club is being run differently in terms of the transfer policy? And the reason I bring this up is because for so many years, Arsenal were always one player away from a title challenge or one player short in certain positions, and it feels like we might be slightly overcompensating from the injury hit season that we had last season. You look at the facts, we're looking to get 2 players minimum in every single position to make sure we ultimately have availability for cover to try and win that elusive Premier League title. And that would signal change for Arsenal. Arsenal are not a team that buy in bulk and buy multiple sort of starter players to play throughout the course of the season. It's more of a Pep Guardiola sort of style where you've got the 3 or 4 world-class sort of centre halves all rotating with Pep bingo, so to speak. And it feels like we're changing to that sort of direction as a football club, especially with Hincapie. The reason that I say this is ultimately Jakub Kiwior was a very good squad player, but the level between him and Gabriel was vast. Hincapie I don't believe is as good as Gabriel, but the level is certainly a lot closer in terms of the player quality, and Kiwior obviously didn't kick up a fuss at all. Now where he is, someone of Hincapie's sort of ability will kick up a fuss if ultimately they don't play a lot of football. We've already seen a player such as Zinchenko complain about minutes and game time, and that is something that I think could negatively impact the squad as a whole if you've got quite a substantial amount of players who want to play more football for a club and are not getting their wishes met. You copy that in with the fact that Arsenal at the moment have a lot of outgoings that need to be dealt with. Kiwior, ultimately, Zinchenko. You look also at Nelson, Sambi Lokonga. There's quite a lot throughout the squad, and we do have a 2-packed squad in my opinion. Now, I don't believe from a player standpoint it makes sense to join with someone of Hincapie's quality to join Arsenal right now, because if you look at the left-hand side, you've got at left back, the other position he can play, you've got Lewis Skelly, who's not going to be taken out of the squad. Granted, he might get less minutes than last season, and Calafiori, who, yes, is injury prone, but he is shown as one of Arteta's favourite players. The sort of aura and change and dynamism he shows on that left-hand side, to even pop up in striker in some circumstances, you know Arteta loves that chaos. Defensively, sure, he could be better, but equally, I do think Calafiori is one of Arteta's favourite players in the squad. Then in the centre-back, you also have Jurrien Timber, who can also play there as a lockdown defender should you need a right footer on that side when you come up against, say, for example, Mo Salah, if Ben White is obviously fit. And then at the left centre-back position, you've obviously got Gabriel. You can imagine Saliba would be able to do a job there. Calafiori can do a job there. You've got Timber, who can play all across the back line. You've got Ben White, who can play all across the back line. You have options. Right centre-back, Mascara can play there. Mascara can also play right back. We saw that the other day. And what I'm trying to say is that I don't know if there's the minutes to actually give a player such as Hincapie, who's got that ceiling, who's got that ability, and keep him happy. It's a potential issue to have down the line where it could then disrupt the squad if you have an unhappy player. It could also technically tank his value, because if he stops playing, he would then want to be sold, and ultimately you'd have an unhappy player who hasn't played much over a year. 40 million could be not well spent, because you could then have to sell him for a cut price deal. However, it does seem he's happy to be a backup on the basis that he would have moved to Spurs, and if he moved to Spurs he would have been back up to Romero. The reason is, even though I don't think Romero is a better player than Hincapie, he is a left-footed centre-half, Romero is a left-footed centre-half. Ultimately, Romero is club captain, so he wouldn't be taken out the side. Second to that, I believe he must be happy to join the Arsenal project. He'd get more wages at Arsenal than he does at Bayer Leverkusen, so that makes a bit of sense. I will then discuss other positions. So, for example, in midfield, we seem to be stacked. If Lewis Skelly does ultimately end up playing in midfield a few times this season, what does that mean for the likes of Mikel Merino, who's only joined a year ago, who minutes so far have been limited this season? He might not feature much, maybe. The left wing, again, on the left side is very stacked now. We've got Eze, Martinelli, Trossard and Madueke there who can play there. Madueke obviously started there against Leeds, even though the left isn't necessarily his preferred position. Not to mention that, we've got links with Real Madrid's Rodrigo on the horizon, where it looks like a loan with an option to buy could be implemented. Madueke, obviously, in that scenario, wouldn't leave because he's just joined. Same with Eze, who can also play on that left side. Obviously, these players can play in multiple positions, but more so Nelly and Trossard, they're more left-sided centric players. Trossard can maybe play up front. Nelly can maybe on occasion fill in on the right, but they're mainly left wingers. So what does that mean for their future? Well, Trossard's just signed a new deal. You can't expect Trossard to leave if Rodrigo came in. I have a sneaky feeling that Martinelli might be leaving at the end of the window. And to me, that's a massive mistake. If you were selling, either had the option of selling Trossard or Martinelli, I, without a shadow of a doubt, get rid of Trossard right now. I think that as much as he's good off the bench, Martinelli is younger, has that hunger, has that fight, loves the club. Defensively is amazing, offers a lot more indirect threat with his pace. I think he has a lot more to offer, a lot more experience and a lot higher ceiling. So for me, I'd keep Martinelli. Not to mention, I just love Martinelli. He's probably my third favourite Arsenal player, but I think it's a mistake letting him go. Rodrigo, however, is obviously a very talented young player, and he would probably make that left wing his own, which means that both Nelly and Trossard might miss out, and then Madueke and Eze would be the backups on that left side. It could be a scenario where we get rid of both, but I can't see Trossard leaving just after this new contract. Martinelli obviously potentially might leave, and that would sadden me greatly, but I feel that you have to have the balance of obviously quality and depth, but also keeping players happy, and it'll be worse if Martinelli doesn't play and gets left out and feels sad, kicks up a fuss. Same with, say, for example, Hincapié. I'm worried that Arsenal are now on the precipice where they need to balance the books, they need to balance the numbers, because otherwise they're blind walking into a situation where ultimately you could have a lot of unhappy players on the hands, which will tank the value, because then a player will submit a transfer request and maybe then they wouldn't want to be at the club anymore, and ultimately a player who wants to leave costs a lot less. Look at what's happening with Isak. They want 150. They're probably not going to get 150 because he is currently not training with Newcastle United. So this is just something I just wanted to address. I am a bit worried about the new direction. I am obviously excited because obviously the best players should always want at your club. So Hincapié coming in as a backup, great. The other final position of maybe a choke point is striker. Jesus is back soon. He can also play left and right wing. We have Kai, we have Gyökeres as striker options. Jesus coming in there. Trossard as striker option. Jesus coming in there. You won't get in there. On the wing, it's hard to see where he's going to get in over Madueke, Trossard, Eze. That competition brings the best out of each other, but Jesus doesn't seem like he's the type who values competition. When you look at the reason he joined Arsenal was initially to become the main man, as he didn't like it at City, not being the main player on the team sheet. He might kick up a fuss, and ultimately it will only mean that he will leave the football club, and obviously he's a quality player. Prime Jesus is a very, very good footballer, world class in nearly every area of striking apart from goal scoring. So that is another worry in itself. But this is just talking points, choke points that we could have. Can you have too much depth in a football team? I think you can, and it's something that I think Arsenal definitely need to address. For me, personally, I'd feel much more comfortable if, say, Trossard left, Jesus left, obviously Sambi, Nelson, etc. left, Kivior left, and we didn't necessarily need to bring anyone else in. I don't think we need Rodrigo. Obviously, if a player like Rodrigo comes up, you have to be in the market for it, but I am very worried about sort of having issues in certain positions where players sort of feel undervalued, and that causes performances to drop when we need everyone to be fighting in the right direction at this case, in this stage in the season. Guarantee injuries are no guarantee. I know we've had Saka out this early doors, and Ødegaard with a potential injury early doors, but injuries in a season are not always guaranteed. You can go through seasons like Liverpool last season where you don't get many, and a player like Chiesa, who you brought in, doesn't get much game time because of that, and he's obviously shown his worth now, but it's just whether it's needed for us to bring in so many players in each position. It's ultimately sort of a balancing act, and it's just whether Arsenal are getting the right sort of balance to that act at the moment. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's just a little bit of a chat I thought I'd have. with you guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more from me. And thank you for all the support recently, by the way. 182 subs. Lovely stuff. Please be sure to subscribe. Goodbye.